I was trained as a doctor, and to a large extent, I'm not saying that I was the black sheep of the family.
How can you be black sheep as a doctor?
Came to understand, okay, that humility has to be the soul of the wheat. Whether you like it or not, agriculture is life. Food security and nutritious food is what we need. This is an area and a sector where there's a call for massive investment.
Hi everyone, I've got a small favor to ask. I know that many of you have been watching these conversations over the past couple of years with people who inspire. It would mean a lot to us and it would help us continue to have these conversations if you would just subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Dear Mr. Boolell, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation.
Thank you. And I know you have an incredibly busy schedule and we've tried to manage to find a time in the day. So thank you for that. So maybe I should lay some what we agreed that we will not discuss bipartisan politics, but you said something to me over the weekend that I thought was very powerful. You said life is politics.
Yes.
And it's so true. And until you said that, I hadn't thought of it in this way. So my first question to you was going to be, were you born a politician?
No, I grew up in a family where politics was the very essence of our well-being. I'm not talking of partisan politics or bipartisan politics or multi-partisan politics, but my father hailed from a very humble family. And despite the fact that my uncle won a scholarship at that time to study at the Royal College of QPIP, he was the main breadwinner after he completed his, at that time, matriculation of school cert. Because the grandfather died very young. My grandmother was very stern, brought up her children well, and put a lot of emphasis on academic studies. And it was my uncle who financed the studies of my father, okay? And he went to the London School of Economics to study law. Initially, he was meant to study economics, but then on the voyage to UK, changed his mind and was enrolled at the London School of Economics and studied law.
Okay.
Qualified as a barrister, came to Mauritius. At that time, you can
count on your hand the number
on the finger the number of barristers, okay, qualified barristers. Not that it was the privilege of a few, but the circle of opportunities was being widened. And he was rather good-looking, but sought after as a lawyer. And at that time, it was a free-member constituency, but it started from Pi to FLAC, okay?
Wow, that was the size of the constituency?
That was the size of the constituency. When you look at the way the boundaries of the constituency, okay, were designed. And he stood as an independent candidate, but had the support of the leader of the IFB then, Mr. Leitsule Bisnuya, and was elected, returned as a member, as an independent member, and then he joined the Labour Party. Right. But the leader of the IFB was not too happy. Now, so basically we grew up in a family where politics to a large extent, and at the time, was almost the be-all and the end-all of all decision of life. That was the time when people were fighting for rights. There were obligations, but there were no rights, okay? And you had a famous trade unionist like Antil, okay, Dr. Curé, and others like Laurent were very much in the forefront not fighting against the hegemony of those who had power, wielded a lot of power, but people like Ramnaren and others, General Roy, who were also great professionals, okay, they all came together. And then, of course, Senghor was very much in the forefront. And at that time, you see, it was how to bring together people of different communities.
Yes.
But what brought them together was a common cause, to fight for social justice. And they were magnanimous in their fight. And all those issues which could provoke and to a large extent whip up by the adversaries, to keep them apart.
Divide and rule.
A policy of divide and rule was not successful, because the overriding agenda was freedom, okay, rights, equal rights for equal pay. But it was a long battle, and as my Irish friend would say, it was a long, long way to Tipperary till independence was won. But even then, we had to take the rung of the social and economic ladder, and it has been done without undue harm to any
Yes.
existing community or to those who wielded economic power. So we grew up in that environment. Mind you, we also had riots, and much to my sadness, underpinning it was a problem of racism, okay? So as not to say racial riot. To a large extent, perhaps whipped up by those who were close to
Yes.
leaders of political parties of the day. I'm not going to say who was or who is to be blamed, but let's say that, there were lessons to be learned and lessons to be drawn. But the joy of living in Port Louis largely rested on good neighborhood, and each one watching on each other. And
Regardless of
community. And the parents sometimes, were a bit difficult, but that attitude, okay, which prevailed then, always gave a reason to parents to justify their actions. And to a large extent, we were told to walk straight, to do good things, and to enjoy this harmonious blending. And how did we do it? By being very courteous, very civil, and bowed to what I would call the structural order that prevailed within society.
So growing up, you were exposed to all of this. I don't know whether you discussed it at meal times, but did you, I suppose at some level, it inspired you to do the same?
Yes, because you see, as I've told you, emphasis was put on academic success, academic prowess.
Yes, you trained as a doctor, right?
I was trained as a doctor, and to a large extent, I'm not saying that I was the black sheep of the family.
How can you be black sheep as a doctor?
No, but putting emphasis on academic success. At that time, there were junior scholarship.
Yes.
And I was one of those who didn't
Right.
get the
As
scholarship.
your brother did.
Yes, my brother, my sister, my cousins, they're all doing very well. And at that time, when you have won the scholarship, it was broadcast on the radio because the number of successful candidates for some more was limited. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Right.
So this is when education was not free.
When education was not free.
Yes.
Now, don't ask me how young I am. But you see, our neighbors also, what was true for us was equally true for others. And our next door neighbor, who had a beautiful colonial house, were the Musa family. Okay. And the eldest son won the scholarship. And I don't know whether he's where he's now, but I know that he's in the States.
Right.
But was a brilliant surgeon. Well, almost one of those surgeons talk of because of his great reputation. Okay. Now, so then you had the Finet family living not far, Téchené. Dr. Ramgulam lived, not in Defoe Street. So, and they all attended Royal College of Portuguese or Royal College of Cupid. So you could see the emphasis being put on what we call education. And education was the open the doors.
Yes, level the playing
level
field.
the playing field, but open at the door and create new opportunities. Enable you to take the rung of the social ladder. And there were many role models, right? I know of a family by the name of David, whose three sons, if my memory serves me right, were laureates from the Royal College of Poetry. Anil Gayan was from the Royal College of Poetry, laureate also. So you grew up in that environment. And I recall when I didn't get the junior scholarship, it was a trauma.
Disappointment.
Big disappointment. How could it? How could this happen?
Did it affect you?
It did, because I was the only one who went to but then I was admitted to what we call the Christian Brother College.
Okay.
Right. Grew up, had many friends, okay. Great, I was a very good soccer player, yeah. And I did well, I did relatively well, but like all average students, okay. And to some extent, it did me a lot of good because I had to put up a fight. I had to do it in a very diligent manner. There was a lot of peer pressure, and I had to look up. And I recall, I had to resit an exams when I was in Dublin, and it was,
Disaster.
Disaster, how could it?
How do you tell that to your parents
I had
as well?
to, because my cousin Satish Boolell was...
Because they were paying for it.
Satish Boolell was 3 or 4 years ahead of me.
Right.
And of course, the bad news, traveled very fast, despite the fact that there was no consent breakthrough technology.
No internet
and all that. There was no touch button technology for the news to be...
but it still traveled.
To be conveyed, right? To be relayed. But you see, I learned it the hard way. And it did me, I hope, I'm sure it did me a lot of good because my mother, and God bless her soul, she sent every week, twice a week, she sent letters, encouraged me to study hard, don't worry even if there's a setback, but do concentrate in your studies. But then at the time, you were young.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that good looking or bad looking, but much sought after bachelor. You know how it was.
You were otherwise occupied.
At the time, I'm sure when you were at university, you were well sought after.
I was a geek.
Before
I was always studying.
Before Mr. Haig came to see you. But you know how it is.
Yeah, but that probably taught you resilience.
Resilience. Resilience.
Because I remember that, as you probably know, so I went through the factory of QEC and all of that, and although I have a lot of good things to say about my previous school, I don't think it prepared me for life, real life.
Yeah.
It doesn't teach you about failure.
Yeah, I've seen this sometimes with my nieces also.
And then when you have a setback, then it's like the whole world crashes, and it shouldn't be like that.
But going to the Christian Brother College, the environment was different. The level of preparedness to face the daunting challenges was much better. Okay, you will learn to face difficulties, sometimes undue hardship, and failure was not something that you have to regret. But in fact, there were lessons to be learned. You had to make a short analysis, right, and see why were you not successful, what you need to do to make the difference next time. And I recall, had the support of the Christian brothers also. And there were good teachers. One of my teachers was Boudou. I don't know whether you know.
Yes.
Marie-José.
Yes.
Well, at the time, I was very much in the limelight, not because she was a beautiful person, but she was on stage, acting in different plays. And it was a Christian brother, who choreographed those plays and shows. Yeah.
And that probably prepared you on your future career, because
Yes.
if you're not taught about setbacks, failure, challenges,
You know what? If there was a lessons drawn and learned, I came to understand, okay, that humility has to be the soul of the wit. And humility is not a sign of weakness, okay? Even if sometimes you have to retreat, but never, you don't have to surrender. Now, but I learned it the hard way, and probably this is the reason why I moved into politics. I got into politics. And I had to prove to myself that I was not the son of my father.
yes,
Okay?
yes,
That carrying the name also carries a lot of responsibility.
it's a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword, and you have to know how to handle the sword. Because at the end of the day, humility, accessibility is far mightier than this power, which can certainly, which probably has been thrust upon you.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you don't know how to sustain it, it may do you no good, or very little good.
And
Or
did
the
you,
good can be
yes,
of a temporary phase.
of course,
Yeah.
transient. Have you ever regretted?
Going into politics? No. No, not at all.
It's your call.
Probably it was my call. True that, it probably impacted at that time,
course.
I was married and divorced, okay? But I live up to expectations to bring up my two sons, one who is an accountant, the other one is a designer. I've had no regrets, okay? Now, probably when I look back, I would say I could have done things differently or not.
Sure.
But I've always made it a point to live up to expectation. Probably I've harmed or hurt some people, but as I say, I have no regrets. And I've been in politics. I've had the full support of those who are close to me. My wife, who's an IT specialist, okay? But I've had the support of many friends. But at the end of the day, politics is to be accessible.
Yes.
Sometimes it can be overpowering. You are human. But on the other hand, you have to be humane. But on the other hand, you must not you need to have some time to yourself to look within. Because otherwise, it's not always good to react through your guts. You cannot allow gut instinct to override rational thinking.
Right.
It's not easy to respond to the demands, to the needs of your electorates always. But you have to put your best endeavor to see what can be done. So, and then, Mauritius being what it is, you come to terms with the fact that whatever you say has to be measured very carefully. Because if you don't err on the side of caution, and in trying to be too vocal, your message can be wrongly interpreted.
Yes. Or the people will say you're making false promises.
And you can probably send the wrong signal, because whether you like it or not today, false news travels fast, or fake news travel fast. So it's good to err on the side of caution, but on the other hand, we're all human beings.
Of course.
You cannot
Population at
stop
large
yourself from
forgets.
releasing some pent-up feelings.
Yes.
But whatever we do, okay, we have to make sure that we don't hurt. Or when the hurt is done, it has to be, we have to take measures needed, okay, to make sure that, it is eased off.
Yes.
The harm is eased off.
Yes.
Okay?
Spoken like a true doctor, given the oath that you took to do no harm.
I recall when I took the oath as a doctor, if there's somebody who was very happy, of course, it was my mother. Because you see, when you hear some people saying, il n'est pas taillé, the lessons to be learned and lessons to be drawn. That's why when people tell me, you have to be more forceful, right? You have to act, okay, with the vigor that we expect you to do. Yes, but I'm not one who will violently disrupt a system.
Right.
The changes have to be brought based on substance, and it has to be done in a very diligent manner. And in doing so, you have to make sure the message is conveyed,
Yes.
that you widen the circle and take as many people as possible on board. This is why I say all on board for a Mauritius Incorporated. Okay? With special and differential treatment for those who have a vulnerability, who is vulnerable. Okay?
Of course.
But you see, this is the Mauritius that we want to build. And it can be done easily. You see, look at you. You're a success story because of the investment made by your parents. And you invested, right, in education. And education is within reach of one and all. It's not a privilege. And this is why I say free education, in spite of many of its
challenges,
changes that have to be brought. Sometimes they are, okay. But it has created opportunities, irrespective of socioeconomic status.
Yes.
It has enabled every one of us to look up, walk tall, and walk the talk. Okay?
Yes. Very inspiring, and I completely agree. Talking about vulnerability, I think that, I don't know whether you will agree with me, but I think you have probably one of the toughest portfolios because of the challenges that Mauritius faces.
You know, as we say, where there are challenges, there are opportunities. But we have to put up a common front to ward off challenges and to grasp opportunities. Let me tell you one. It's not a ministry which certainly would have given me some cold, would have given me, or which would give me cold shivers down my spine. My father was the Minister of Agriculture and Environment, and later on Minister of Agriculture and Environment. Arvin Boolell was pegged to the ministry. And being brought up in a family which has been in politics and nurtured on the joy, the trials, tribulations of politics, okay, it's nothing new. But, and I have a very good junior minister. Fabrice is very endowed, very committed, and we work as a team. As you say, it's agriculture, agro-industry, fisheries, food security, and blue economy. And to a large extent, it's Mauritius.
Yes.
It's Mauritius. Now, what makes me sad is indolence. I'm not harping on any political chord.
Sure.
But since the last 10 years, there's been indolence because agriculture has not been put in the forefront.
And we went through COVID as well. That should have been a wake-up call.
That's right. You said, you put it right. I was leader of opposition, so you're right to say that. Whether you like it or not, agriculture is life. Food security and nutritious food is what we need to survive, okay? My policy and the policy of government has been to eat what we produce and produce what we eat.
Yes.
But for this to happen, we have to say, halt. I will raise the red flag, which I'm raising. There should be no encroachment on prime agricultural land. There's a call for suitability of land index.
Yes.
Okay? And it's high time that we have a land bank. And there's no farther than one solution, but the political to the problem. But the political will is there and has to be sustained. Osbel Sugar State has land which is yet to be fully exploited. MIC acquired land, prime agricultural land, but it acquired them and bought them at an exorbitant price. Okay? And I won't say from which sugar state, just to avoid any controversy. Landscope has land which is yet to be fully exploited. Sugar Investment Trust has land which is yet to be exploited. So land is not an issue.
So we have the arable land. We do have that.
But no, you've used the word arable. How many acres are arable? It depends on what we have to do and what we need to do.
Right.
Because land preparation is very important. Irrigation is paramount.
We've got water issues.
We've got water issues. Clones have to be either brought from elsewhere or produced in our own centers or laboratories. Okay? So we have to get our act together.
And people issue.
Now we'll come to labor. Labor is a big issue. There's a shortage of manpower and an aging workforce.
Yes.
But we have to make agriculture attractive to attract those young students who are studying at the University of Mauritius. Those who can be skilled and reskilled into the agricultural sector. We have to make agriculture smart and beautiful. Today we talk of precision agriculture. And with the constant breakthrough in biotechnology and artificial intelligence, we have to use it intelligently to respond to the needs of the consumers. There are things that we will never be able to do. We cannot have breeding of livestock on a large scale. Backyard is all right.
But we can do potatoes, we can do onions.
But would you believe it? There was a time when Sir Satcam was Minister of Agro-Industry, when Neapal Singh was Minister of Agriculture, when my friend Manandelu, but there were many times when I was Minister of Agro-Industry, we reached self-sufficiency in potato production. Now, our potato production is only 12,000 tons.
How much do we need?
25,000 tons. With good seed, appropriate land, good cultivar practices, we can make it. Onions. Because when you compute, we are yet to reach self-sufficiency, we can easily do it. Because when you compute, right, the cost of import, we're importing 60 billion rupees of our food needs.
Wow.
Now, I recall when I was minister, I leased, the ministry, right, leased land to Surat because they brought cattle livestock from South Africa, right, for milk production. It was not successful. We allocated land to a group which belonged to a family which I'm sure is still the main holder of the fuel group. Okay, not successful. These are private sector, and yet they went into what they call, computer-controlled feeding of the livestock, etc.
Yeah.
Now, but yet there are many people who do backyard
farming,
cattle farming and rearing. Okay, so we have to revisit policies. I'm not saying that yesterday's failure cannot be today's success, but we have to revisit policies. Now, be it agriculture, with breakthrough, as I said, in biotechnology, in AI, in precision agriculture, we can make agriculture look smart. Now, we have to attract those youngsters.
But I don't think
we're not willing to sell their finger.
They don't find it sexy enough.
But we can make it sexy for them. Hydroponics, computer control, adequate release of fertilizers and water. Okay. Netherlands is a small European country,
Yes.
but it is the biggest vegetable producer and grower which supply Europe. So with the advent and constant breakthrough in technology and agriculture and the shade house, call it hydroponic, aeroponic, whatever name, we can make it. Permaculture, okay, there's not much money to be made from it, but there's a fine gentleman by the name of Soup who is doing it in Debra. I think it's in Debra. He's asked me to come and visit his farm. You see, so we have to go back to the land. When, okay, you toil the land, okay, it's divine, right? It dawns on you. We have...
Because we are from the land.
Yeah, we're all from the land, okay?
Yeah. And we go
One
back to
should
the land.
never give up. What stops you from having a potted plant with herbs in it? I'm talking of good herbs. Huh? What stops you from doing it? Let us go back to the land that has nurtured and nourished us. We want nutritious food.
Yes. Because this is also linked to, and I always find it shocking, the rate of diabetes in Mauritius.
You see, that's why I'm putting emphasis on nutritious food. I came back from a conference, attended a conference in Rome, which was organized by IFAD. And today we are talking of widening the circle of opportunities for one and all, putting emphasis on nutritious food production, okay? But at the same time, what with the accompanying measures being dispensed, which we do give to members of planting, growing, or farming communities, we have to make sure that projects are bankable. Invest in agricultural development, okay, food and agricultural development, but projects have to be bankable. But make it easy for those who are keen to come up with startups, okay, right, who are keen to produce what we eat and eat what we produce, but we have to make it easy for them for accompanying measures. But accompanying measures do not mean that we have to keep holding your hands from here to eternity.
Sure.
But then the backup of institutions are relevant. That's why I'm having we are revisiting all those institutions which are dispensing support. We have excellent institutions, but the tragedy, or sometimes I say it's a comedy rooted in the tragic realities, to a large extent, it's due to the fact that they all operate in silos.
Right. They don't talk to each other.
They do, but, politely. What we want them to talk vigorously, because we have to look at a roadmap.
Of course.
We have to live up to expectation. We have to level up constantly and deliver. Make no mistake, it is not because we're small island developing states with a high vulnerability index. And I'm not going to talk about ecosystem and climate impact of climate change.
Sure.
But one thing that we have to learn: no one owes us a living. That today we have used proceeds from the sale of sugar to widen the economic base.
Sure.
And look where you are.
Yes.
Look where our two friends are.
Yes.
Okay? Services sector is very much at the forefront. It is in the vanguard of economic development. But at the same time, no nation walks on an empty belly.
Of course.
That's why we say fish and chips, they are, okay?
Yeah.
Good companions.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
And you were in UK, so I'm
Yes,
sure you
yeah,
enjoyed
no,
your
I had
fish
some a
and
couple of
chips.
weeks ago, love
Yeah.
it. But what worries me as well is that, I mentioned COVID earlier, is that I think that is the target 40% to try to be at least 40% self-sufficient. I don't know, I read that somewhere, but I find it shocking that despite what we went through in COVID with the rising prices, has there been any, we sort of seem to have regressed instead of advanced.
But on the other hand, you are right, we have regressed because we put too much emphasis on land speculation. You see, and today we've priced people out, we price legitimate people out of purchasing power. your parents have made huge sacrifices, but in spite of it all, they've been able to have a roof over their head. Now it's almost impossible. You can see young couple enjoying a sumptuous dinner in one of the best restaurants, but unable to make savings to have a roof over their heads.
Exactly.
This is the cycle, the vicious cycle that we want to break. We have to create the harmonious blending. That's why I say no encroachment on prime agricultural land. We should know where we're going to build housing units, okay?
Yes.
And where proper landscape should be. There's a call for this harmonious development, okay? Which is the very pinnacle of good planning, okay? You cannot have an upheaval. You need to have structured planning, okay? Because at the end of the day, we want our children to grow up in a very conducive environment. This is important. At the end of the day, what is the most relevant, what is very dear to all of us? Our people. Our people are magic. We have a great human resource. And it's a blessing, not a curse. Oil can be a curse, but human beings are God-given.
And we should not take it for granted.
But we must not take it for granted. We must protect them. That's why we have to come together. We're on the eve, almost on the eve of independence, right?
Yeah.
We need to come together as one nation, as one people, one nation. We need to live up to expectation. It's our country, our sense of belonging. The joy of being a citizen of a great little country, which has the potential to be an ocean state. People don't realize the opportunities which are knocking.
And that's the other thing that, and we'll move on to the other, the blue economy. I was reading a little bit up on it yesterday. 2.3 million square kilometers. Yeah. Untapped potential.
Untapped. The blue economy is an economy which is yet to be fully tapped. Of course, we export.
Sure.
What we call the white gold.
Yes, the tuna.
The tuna, right? But be careful. We have to make sure that there's no depletion of our stock, because we have to wage intensive war, and we don't have the means on those who are involved in illegal, unreported, and regulating fishing activities.
Yes.
This is where geopolitical strategies of utmost importance. Now, we are a member of the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission. And I heard my good friend Béranger, when he was intervening in Parliament, saying that Indian Tuna Commission is not living up to expectation. But I probably have to move a motion to impress upon Indian Tuna Commission to live up to expectation, okay, and to remind them that following the ruling given in 2015 by the Tribunal of the United Nations Convention Law of the Sea, that Mauritius and not UK is a coastal state. Okay, I'm not going to comment on what is evident and obvious, because there are ongoing discussions.
Yes.
But you've stated it, and you've put it across beautifully, and you've stated the facts, okay? That today we are an ocean state. And it's an economy which is yet to be fully exploited, from ocean tourism to deep sea fishing, okay? Right? The world is our oyster, but we have to act. Time is of an essence.
Is it the lack of resources?
Now, there are 40,000 ships plying the Western Indian route. Do you know how many call?
How many?
To our ports? 2,000 only. Now, are you telling me that we are going to become an ocean state with only 2,000 ships calling to a port?
Our port should be a regional hub.
That's right. So we have to invest massively, and this is what government is looking into. Massive investment into modernization of a port to capture this readily available opportunity. 2,000 ships only, when more than 40,000 ships ply that route. If I tell you that there's no direct shipping route from India to Mauritius, would you believe it?
No.
Yes. So Madagascar is way ahead of us in relation to investment in port activities. But I know the commitment of Prime Minister. When this portfolio has been conferred upon me, of course it's a teamwork, work in full collaboration with all ministers in Parliament. This is an area and a sector where there's a call for massive investment. If you want to turn Port Louis into an international fishing port, and we have the opportunity to construct a fishing port not far from the main port, okay? And we have to go much further. We have to turn Port Louis into an international fish auction market. So opportunities are there. It is true, as you said earlier, we have to reskill and skill our workforce.
Yes.
But today we believe in circular migration. If we have to bring labor from seat elsewhere, we have to bring the qualified and skilled labor. Where's the harm? I said, we have to bring 1,000.
Yes, I read that recently, yeah.
1,000 persons from India.
We have no choice.
What choice do we have? I agree. In so doing, we have to look at demographic changes. I speak without fear or prejudice, right? But we have to be on the move. Mauritius has to be on the move. That's why when I started, what did I say? We should all be on board to create this Mauritius Incorporated. You, I, the beautiful young lady, and our young friend, all right?
Yes.
We're all on board, irrespective of how vulnerable we are or not. It's our country, our land. As we say, okay, we are not nombre du monde, but we are proud to be Mauritians of a great republic. And the potential to live in an ocean state is there, and the opportunities are not.
So when we're talking about financial resources,
yes,
I suppose that's where you need the buy-in of the private sector as well.
You see, when Mauritius became independent, prior to that, the reason as to why the Director of Public Prosecution was given constitutional powers. The fear was that government would have a hold on properties a few years before independence.
Yes, yes.
Madame Gadjador used to say that the DPP was next to God. The DPP not only has to be independent, but has to be fiercely independent. And I'm glad that, not because he was my brother, but, in relation to, not rulings, but opinions, or, yes. Okay, all right, they justify the decisions taken publicly. Not what in all cases, but in some cases.
Sure. Now,
what are we saying? We have no choice but to come together. And private sector, when Sesi Uzaga became Prime Minister, he said, no, we have to take everybody on board. Because there were lessons to learn from the failure of from the failure policies adopted by some of our African friends.
Right.
Okay? We came together irrespective of color, of creed, of religion, of social status. We came together as a nation. I recall, when the national anthem was played, it took people some time to realize that they were citizens of this great country.
Really?
Yes. I've seen people, while national anthem was being played, just doing what they wanted to do, or simply to show that that they were not party to this fundamental change. But then they all came to terms. You see, and...
Yes, because some people voted against it.
Yeah, but there are people who reacted to the guts. But ultimately, everybody came together. They started to work together. then we know what the outcome has been over the years, okay? And today we are reaping the benefit of coming together of private, public sector, NGO, trade union. Despite the fact that we agree to disagree,
Sure.
but we've come together. We have traveled a long way. And let nobody try to sow the seed of division within this
And we've
unity.
seen that recently.
Look where you are today. Successful student, laureate. You're heading
You're going to make me blush.
you're heading a big unit, right? Power, brain power. It was not thrust on you, right? And you've earned it through sacrifices. That's why I say coming together as a nation. I always tell my friend from the private sector, okay? Profit should not be the only motive. All of us have an obligation because of the rights conferred on us to reconcile social and economic factors to empower a nation. I don't believe in trickle-down theory, but at the same time, we have to work, and there's no substitute for hard work.
I agree.
Okay? Singapore, call it an autocratic,
It's not a democracy.
transparent state, because it is accountable. But autocratic, it's in old way, right? Because to a large extent, it had no choice than to be maverick, forceful, invest in education, reinvent the system of education, adapt to changing circumstances, creating new ecosystem, but live up with great expectation. That's why I say, I will quote former President Obama, the audacity of hope. This is paramount to our success, and we can make it. I think it's India, incredible India, which says making it happen. Not make it happen, making it happen.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. I want to finish with this question, and Natasha's going to kill me because I realized that the Independence Day is on Wednesday, but I really want this episode to come out this week. So do you think it's possible? So, because I think this is so timely that you've graced us with your presence today. And
when a charming lady like you invite a mere mortal like me, I have no choice. I cannot look back.
But I think it's so timely that we're celebrating our independence in 2 days. And I wanted to ask you, it's more of a philosophical question. So what does it mean for you? What does independence mean for you? I think and without going political,
Sure.
I think a lot of things that we've seen in November last year is that a lot of people were coming out on the streets, standing on the roof, saying this is our second independence. And I had goosebumps because I've always been a politically neutral person. But I think for perhaps the second time in our history, people felt it meant something. So what does independence mean for you?
What it means for me, it means liberty. Because the right to freedom cannot be taken for granted. And that freedom has to be circumscribed also. Because today, access to information, be it online, should not undermine that freedom in the name of access and dissemination of information at all costs.
Sure.
We have to value that freedom. We cannot take it for granted. And that's why I say to all my friends, it didn't happen accidentally. It was earned and not thrust upon us. And there was a lot of healing in relation to this independence.
Yes.
Okay? And we have traveled and come a long way. The sacrifices made by our fathers, our forefathers, and all those, probably who were victims of discrimination, be it in the sugarcane field or elsewhere, we have to remember. look back and give thought to the sacrifices made. We cannot take it for granted. That's why I say we have to put a premium on it. We have to consolidate it. We have to enhance it. And of course, it means, having a fresh look at our constitution, revisiting our electoral system, modernizing our electoral system. But whatever we do, we have, at times, even we have to be angels with a tight fist, but we have to be angels when it comes to constitutional reform. Okay? Because this independence, the liberty that we are enjoying, and I felt it's not only breaking away from past colonial masters, but we should also make sure that breakthrough in technology doesn't undermine that freedom.
Yes.
Okay? So it's God and people given. We have to respect that freedom. That's the message that I want to convey to youngsters, to those who are mavericks in all different fields,
Sure.
those who are enjoying their retirement. Let us be who we are, put up a common front, and be proud and say with pride that we belong to a great little country, Mauritius. And let's put our hands up because we don't want to ask for more and more when we can do it, make it through hard work and diligence.
I don't think I can add much to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.